Hey everyone, it's me, Arden Lee. I am back today with another video, and I realized that I've had a bit of a lapse in posting videos the last 2 weeks. I wouldn't say that was necessarily a conscious choice, but it was a choice because, of course, who chooses what to prioritize in my own life if not for me? And I chose to prioritize some other things that were happening. There have been a number of large shifts into expansion that I sort of sensed in my body were coming, that I sort of had some ideas about, and some feelings about, but which I could not have possibly predicted how they were going to show up. And instead of sticking to my content schedule, even when I wanted to, even when I was feeling guilty about not sticking to my content schedule, I would go on and make a thread and say like, hey, like, I go to my community and say, hey, what kind of topics do you guys want to see some videos on? Even when I did that, I didn't get as many responses this time around, or even the responses I did get, I was like, well, I think I've made a video on that topic already, or it doesn't feel like something that I'm uniquely qualified to speak on, which you guys know me. I usually, anything you guys lay down, I'm like, oh, when do I not have like answers for things? But they were either subjects that were, more about personal goals and not, as relevant to the collective, or whatever. So I really, I kind of honored that. I really honored that feeling in my body of like, this is not the most important thing to do right now. And given the way that the last 2 weeks unfolded and how much expansion there was for me, it kind of makes sense now. And so I want to come back on and I want to reconnect. I want to set the intention to get back into making videos because it's still important to me. But I want to be honest about that. That was for the first time today. I really felt in my body, like, oh, this is the thing that we can talk about. This is what's going on. And so the topic that I want to talk about is that expansion leaves no room for perfection. Whew. Expansion leaves no room for perfection. Whew. Yeah, it's been a wild couple weeks, you guys. I want to speak on that a little bit and about how that shows up and how, the best laid plans can be laid waste to by a shift that comes up that is so important to you on a soul level that you can't, it becomes so much more important to follow that feeling and that calling and whatever that is bringing up in your body, than doing anything else that you'd sort of planned, even if you thought that it was important for you, for your business, for your brand, or whatever, for your life as you've been living it thus far. So I'm going to get into a little bit where I want to talk about that. If you're not yet familiar with me and my work, my name is Arden Lee, and I am the creator of the Repatterning Project, which is an 8-week course that is far more powerful than I ever anticipated it would be when I put it together. I'm saying that it's not my intention to come on here and brag, but you can notice I'm in a place of expansion because my spiel is changing, I'm not feeling aligned to describing things in the same way that I was just a couple weeks ago. One of the things that has happened is, as I've now just wrapped up teaching it for a second time, as people are sharing with me what they've learned, both the second incarnation as well as people from the first round, who are now having a good 6 months worth of being able to implement all the things they learned in the first course and coming back and telling me how their lives have changed. I've realized it's far, far bigger and more powerful than I have had ever possibly anticipated. I put this course together and I was really just hoping, I just hope people don't ask for their money back. I don't know, I hope it works. Here's what I did, but I'm getting feedback from people that, for example, there's one person who shared with me that they've been having suicidal thoughts since they were 7 years old, and that after taking this course, they don't feel that way anymore. They're suddenly like, no, I'm good. I want to live. I want to have a life. There is a person who, was housebound for 5 years with anxiety with PTSD after a traumatic incident, and has gotten a job for the first time. There's another person who, people, the way that they're relating to their work that they're already doing. There are people who are getting promoted. There are people who are saying for the first time, I don't feel like I have to bend backwards to please people. I have so much more energy. I have so much more energy and time for myself to make conscious choices that serve me. There are people who have stopped dating fuckboys. There are people who are like, oh, well, if you're going to treat me that way, you no longer meet my standards. I'm not going to worry about what did I do or not do right, to whatever. No, you don't meet my criteria for someone that I want to give my energy to. These are shifts that you can't put a price on these kind of things. So for me, this last couple weeks has been so much about claiming ownership of the value that I apparently bring, and stepping into my worth, stepping into positions of leadership, and also taking that leadership and integrity with me wherever I go places, which has meant for me really owning and claiming my voice, which has shown up in some really unexpected ways that I didn't anticipate this past week, in ways that were not always fun and a little bit scary, but ways that if you're doing what's really aligning to you in your heart. Just because something's scary doesn't mean. I think if when you're following your heart and you tune into that, it becomes actually scarier to like not follow your heart, So the risk of speaking up, of risking not being liked by people, gets mitigated by knowing that like, oh, this is why I felt all this expansion, all these shifts coming up. This is why so many crazy synchronicities have been lining up. This is why this has felt so important this whole time. And now it's my turn to do that. It gets to a point where even if it feels scary, it's not as scary as not doing it. So that's a little bit about where I'm at lately. And I was on a podcast interview earlier this afternoon, and talking about this course, which is essentially the owner's manual that we never got for our own human operating systems. It's a comprehensive look at how our beliefs are formed, how our patterns get formed through our early childhood and all through our formative relationships and our social conditioning and everything that affects the way that we think and the roles that we place ourselves in within the world. And so I've described it as a little bit like doing ayahuasca, where it's the same medicine, everyone's drinking the same thing, who's in that container, but everyone gets a different result because the thing that everyone on an individual level needs to work on in terms of what their patterning is shows up differently, as all of those testimonials can attest to. So I was on this podcast today describing what it is, and I was like, I feel like it's like the Tesseract. I feel like it's like the Mother Box, for those of you Marvel Cinematic Universe fans. I feel like I've accidentally created this thing that it turns out is really powerful, and it's even in the way that I'm speaking about it right now, you can tell how hesitant I am to like own that, because I'm still fearing that people are going to think that I'm making things up because I've been gaslit so many times. I'm like, if I come on the video and I say like, my course is amazing and it will change your life, they're not going to believe me. So I better prove evidence that other people have said it, and have said it in so many different capacities. But there comes a time where I can no longer ignore the power that this clearly has. So yeah, so that's where I've been. That's where I've been at lately. And if you want to learn more about it, there's stuff in the description box. Wow. Yeah, I feel like been going a little mad over here in a very good way. But yeah, if that sounds like your jam, there's a free PDF guide link, and there's also a link to the Facebook group, the Repatterning Parlor, which is free to join. Just answer a couple questions. We'd love to see you there, because creating community around this desire for this massive change so that people can be supported in stepping into that change is important to me, and I would love to see you be a part of that. So come join us. Whew. even everything that felt so rote and routine just 2 weeks ago when I was still making videos feels completely shifted now. Like, do you guys feel that, right? You see where everything feels, my entire reality feels different and expanded. And that was more important than sticking to my content schedule and saying the same old spiel over and over again. And this is coming up a lot lately for a number of people. There's a woman who I consider sort of a business role model, Kiara Mizuko, who is really cool. She's not someone I've hired, so she's not really a mentor to me personally, but I followed her work and listened to her podcast and followed her for a while. And she's been saying lately that, like, hey, I think it might be time for me to archive this Facebook group that just less than a year ago I was all about adding people to and building this community. Guess what? I've gotten to a place where this doesn't really serve me anymore. I think I'm just gonna shutter it and move on to the bigger things. She was talking about, ceasing her podcast, which for a while was like her baby. I think she just said she released a new episode, so maybe she changed her mind on that. I don't want to speak for her, but these are big deals, right? So we get into these routines sometimes, like myself included, where it's like, all right, video a day, because that's what my coach Adam Lyons told me to do. He actually told me to do 10 videos a week, and then I was like, that feels like a lot. Let me just do a video a day. 7 videos a week is fine. So I committed to that, and it feels like something that I still want to stick to. But for a long time, I had this idea in my head that missing a day would be like tragedy. That if I missed one day, then I'd let myself miss plenty of days and I would stop doing it. And I'm removing myself from that paradigm now because it's no longer helpful to me. Because truthfully, if I spent these last weeks really prioritizing making videos and I wasn't showing up for this big expansion that occurred for me, then it's quite clear that I would be talking about kind of canned topics that I didn't feel that natural inspiration toward. Because that's why I was feeling that resistance in the first place. And now I'm coming back. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, wow, I want to talk about this. I want to reconnect. I want to make a video from this kind of new place of expansion. And if you're following on Facebook, some of these might have been out of order. Because I know I upload them to YouTube before I do Facebook. So I don't even know when you're going to see this. I trust that you're going to see it whenever you need to see it. I trust that you're going to see it whenever it calls to you. So I'm going to trust in the divine timing of the universe. So that's something that my own coach, my own energetic alchemy coach, Catherine Girardi, had said to me in a recent session, where she said, trust your when. You want to know when everything's going to happen. You want to get everything plotted out, but really trust your when. Trust the when that is in your body. Trust the when that is inherent to you. And so I want to point out that the mechanics behind the idea that expansion leaves no room for perfection. Because let's say you have perfection. Let's say you have this, I made a video just, a couple days ago. I think I uploaded a video, or I don't know. I don't even know what day it is, you guys. Whatever it was that I was last consistently making videos, I uploaded a video called, like, if your personal growth isn't messy and awkward, sometimes you're probably not doing it right. And this is where I want to get into a bit more of the specific mechanics around that. Specifically around this idea that if we stick to perfection, for example, my content schedule, I post a video a day, right? If I make my mark, if I post 1 video a day, then I've made my goal, right? That's my perfection. Whatever looks smooth and neat on the surface, whatever that perfect Instagram life kind of thing is that I was pointing out in that last video is probably fake. And the reason for that is that if you're really growing, if you're really expanding, you're going to be called to newer and newer things, and your old models for how things were working for you aren't necessarily going to work anymore. It worked for me when setting the intention to really commit to my business, and specifically to commit to bringing the Repatterning Project to a wider audience. it was definitely an alignment for me to make a video a day. It still is an alignment for me to make a video a day in general. But if I miss a couple of weeks because things aren't working out, because, you know, even even when I tried to record this video today, you guys, like, it glitched and I lost like the whole thing. This is actually my second attempt. But when there's like, when I could feel like, no, this is not just a matter of me being, you know, lazy, quote unquote, which I'm not sure I really believe in the word lazy anyway. I think laziness is just what's in the way. It's not, you know, it's not just a matter of me not having discipline. Sometimes we really need to listen. Sometimes discipline is about connecting with our bodies and saying, whoa, there's something really big that's about to show up for me. And if that means I need to put my videos on hold for a bit so I can be the person that I need to be when stepping up into this expansion, then so be it. If I try to be perfect at everything, if I try to do things the way that I've always done, and I try to land on this perfect model, it's not going to leave room for the times that I need to expand into the next level. If you have this idea that, you know, not sticking to the thing that you've done is quitting, is giving up, you know, and maybe sometimes it is. Maybe sometimes there are times that that discipline is really called for. But if you really think that, if you have an, you know, an ingrained belief that giving up on something you started means you're a quitter, that's going to keep you from key moments of your growth where you're being called to step into something that's entirely new, that maybe has nothing to do with what you were just doing. Or at the very least, means putting that thing on pause and not beating yourself up if for a little while you had a big thing to attend to. You guys, I hardly got to grieve my cat. You know? My fucking cat died 2 weeks ago. And there's been such a rush. This is a time where everything is moving so quickly and shifts are happening so rapidly. And I felt so much like the universe is just being like, all right, we gave you a couple days. You got to be good now. Come on. There's more work to do, you know? And that's really, truly what I've been feeling in my soul and my heart in terms of what's going on, in terms of the synchronicities that I've been receiving, in terms of the guidance that I've been receiving, which is a little weird to talk about. But I want you to know when I say this, that I'm not just, again, maybe it's that fear of, you know, from the experience of being gaslit. I want you to understand that I'm not making excuses. I'm really tuning into my discernment and seeing like what is coming up. And yeah, this largeness, this stepping into power and voice that was really not super comfortable, showed up in a big way after that. There were also a lot of sleep disturbances that week, a lot of weird things happening, weird things lining up that even my friends kind of noticed. Hey, didn't you bring this up just the other day? And then the actions that you took in relation to this decision directly affected the things that happened, you know, 2 days later or whatever. And isn't this like, look how all of this is working, all of this divine orchestration that really seems to be at play here. So sometimes, man, your expansion is just a fucking steamroller, you know, that's going to lay waste to everything that you had built for yourself previously. And sometimes you're going to be able to come back on and make another video and pick up where you left off, and that's fine. And sometimes you're going to say, no, this no longer serves me and I'm being called into something greater. So anytime you feel that guilt around perfection, remember that we're in a really intense fucking time. And the old way of doing things doesn't work anymore. Everyone is shifting. Everyone. Everyone is shifting into new ways of being. What do I mean by that, right? I mean that There are different things that motivate us. There are different values that society is holding now that maybe 3 to 5 years ago were not as important, which means that we have to start looking to our own integrity. There are values that are being called up for examination. There are things that are happening in the collective where things that were okay a little while ago are no longer okay. And also that means that as things are evolving forward, there are certain ways of being that are no longer going to be effective, and there are certain ways of being that are being called in to replace those old means, right? I like to think of my content schedule of a video a day in a way being almost like a system, and almost like a system that gets mirrored in so many of the ways that we've been doing other things in society. If we keep on, say, dealing with our trash in the same way that we've been dealing with it for the past however many decades, just for the sake of doing things according to the system that we've been living under, we're going to have some bad news about our environment, right? This is the time where everything is being called up into question. So I just want to advise you, please don't worry about perfection in these times. That's not what we're aiming for. The thing that seems perfect at the time may be perfect at the time, but it might just be a stepping stone to where you're supposed to go eventually. Would I have seen this kind of expansion come about for me if I hadn't committed to my content schedule 6 months ago? Maybe that is what perfection is just having that emotional self-mastery to create the discernment moment by moment to really know where our hearts are calling us, so that we know what resistance is coming up that is the kind of resistance that we want to push through and grow and expand ourselves, right? The kind of resistance that's just fear, that just needs to go. And the kind of resistance that is like, no, pause, there is something more important. And that ultimately comes down to discernment, and feel free to ask your people, feel free to get your second opinions. But yeah, that's basically it. That's what I wanted to say. There's no room for perfection when you're on a path of expansion. So if you need to find perfection in your moment by moment discernment of what your heart and your soul purpose, not your soul purpose, your soul purpose are calling you to. If there's any perfection to strive for, it's that. Because guess what? Even when you fuck it up and make a mistake, that was probably following your heart too. Whew. All right, y'all. Thanks for staying with me, being patient. I appreciate you. I'll go give my body some rest. See you next time.